Hi, I'm Pat Barrett, and I'm doing my second YouTube video, and I want to address the issues in Minneapolis to start with and compare it to some things that I saw when I was young, like 70 years ago, 60 years ago. This shirt right here, it's in Spanish, but right now, if I wore this, it could get me detained, arrested, even assaulted by law enforcement, federal law enforcement, in fact, members of ICE, members of the consumer of the CBP, Customs Border Patrol people. Okay, this action, this surge of federal officers into American cities, clearly is targeting brown and black people. And therefore, I think we might use a phrase that I haven't heard anyone else use. I don't know if I'm the first. But to me, it's clearly a form of ethnic cleansing, which is an international crime. And people are taking videos of these actions, and two of them were murders, outright murders. Anyone watching the video know it's murder by federal officers. And it's interesting that the two people murdered turned out to be white Americans, American citizens. That has caused an earthquake in the elections that have been going on. We've had a few, off season, you might call it, elections in Texas and other places in heavily Republican areas that have gone massively for the Democrats. That's got to tell you something. This series of videos we've been watching and the actions of these federal officers have galvanized the American people. We've seen this before. In 1965, I worked in malls in the 60s, and I never saw black people shopping. They were there. They were in Phoenix, where I grew up, but I didn't see them shopping, so I asked some people, black people, where do you shop? And they said, downtown. We can only go to the stores downtown. So something happened in 65, because until then, the majority of people, I will say, because about 90% of the population was white, another 10% black. We had nothing like the diversity that we have now. Some of you will be very surprised to know in Arizona, I wanted to practice my Spanish, and I had trouble finding Spanish speakers. So we've had a tremendous change in what they call demographics, the population, who makes up our population of Americans. And back then, the majority, the white people, were not very worried about segregation. They didn't see blacks like I didn't. They didn't think about them. The fact that blacks couldn't live, work, where they wanted to. And we dealt with it, and I say we because I was one of those white people, and we dealt with it, well, that was in the South. Now, we're not in the South. I went to the South in 1956, Dothan, Alabama, and I saw segregation up close in several very ugly forms. So I knew what it was. So a couple of years after that, I was in Arizona, and our school was kind of divided. Like four of us on one side and all the rest on the other, on the idea of school integration. That was the big issue then. It was right after Brown v. Board of Education in 54, the Supreme Court decision saying segregating students in schools, public schools, by race was unconstitutional. And that led to massive changes. But the changes weren't being implemented, say. In 65, Oh, by the way, when I was in Dothan, Alabama, 100 miles away in Montgomery, the capital of Alabama, a guy named Martin Luther King was leading a boycott of the buses. That boycott, the Montgomery bus boycott, starting by, Rosa Parks, that really kicked the civil rights movement into a national phase. But I didn't know anything about it. I'm a little white guy, and a little white kid, really, in Alabama, Dothan. And I never heard about it, even though it was all going on 100 miles away. Plus, I was riding public buses to school packed with black women going to work in white homes. And I'll tell you a story about that another time. But what's happening with the cameras and everything was echoed by what happened in 1965 when a large group of blacks were protesting their lack of ability to vote. They couldn't vote. The registrars would not register them. So they were protesting, a peaceful protest. They marched across a bridge called the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama. And a large mob of highway patrolmen attacked them and beat them severely, put many in the hospital, etc. There were TV cameras present because these protests have been going on. And someone in ABC or CBS or something thought that they should maybe cover this, and they did. And they caught this on film. It went all around the country. All the TV stations carried it, and all around the world. That made white Americans look themselves in the mirror and say, oh, this really cannot go on. And they had already managed to pass a Civil Rights Act, and 65 was the Voting Rights Act, which really changed things. Later, 68, the Supreme Court approved the Fair Housing Act. The Fair Housing Act allowed me and my wife is black, we had been living in the restricted area, small area of South Phoenix for blacks, since we got married in 64. So in 68, that bill passed, and by 73, we were able to move out and live wherever we wanted to. And now you imagine yourself constrained like that, restricted like that. That happened to me, even though I was white, but my wife was black. You see what I mean? Put yourself there. But the videos show these things going on, and no matter what the Trump administration says, everyone, even Trumpers, are seeing the videos and making up their own minds. And I want to point out how important that is. Another side of that, flip side, is I'm 84 years old. I had these things happen to me. I'm telling you, you can comment on my YouTube channel and ask me, well, did that really happen? How did that happen? And how do you, blah, blah, blah. Whatever, I can tell you, I was there. A few more years, I hope many more, I won't be here. You'll have to read about it in books. But if you're recording these things, the recordings are going to be there. The murder of Renee Good, and Alex Preddy, those aren't going to go away. They're going to be there for the future, so people can see, just like you can look at the march over the Edmund Pettus, Pettus, Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama in 1965. This is important to hold the legacy of our democracy, And I really encourage you to keep your cameras ready and record things, because I understand that Phoenix is on the list for ICE to come in. So be ready. And if you watch this, and whether you like or do not like, that's like and dislike, do those, subscribe, most of all, for me, comment. So I get feedback. I want your feedback. And thank you very much.